So I can do a little introduction real quick.
Okay.
To those who are new, welcome to home. For those of you returning to class, welcome back to home. This has been a weekly class that Phuntsok has held for the past maybe 3 years or so. And then since things have transpired the way they have over the past few months, they've transitioned onto these weekly Zoom calls, which have been really great. Generally, the class will start with a meditation. Phuntsok will give a little bit of commentary after that as well, a lecture. And then if there's time, we'll have a Q&A and close the evening out with another meditation. For this class, I wrote up the email, and I was curious about a feeling that I keep bumping into, where on one hand, there are these like very obvious signifiers of the path to enlightenment, the being a Buddhist. There's this idea I have in my head of being a good Buddhist, and there's the list of vows that I've committed to and things like that. And then on the other hand, there are these moments where I'm not thinking about trying to be a good Buddhist. I'm not thinking about these shoulds or shouldn'ts that I should do, and I'm just acting, and I act in ways that surprise me sometimes, and there's this sort of like spontaneity that happens, and it's there's joy, and it's kind of a marvel to take in. So I was really hoping that Phuntsok would be able to describe how to be more spontaneous, how to connect better with that spontaneous heart, and come from this place that that maybe it's the result of all the ideas I have taken on, and maybe they feed each other. So with that, I'll leave it over to Phuntsok, and I'm sure he can describe all these things in much better words than I. We'll go into a meditation and continue class.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I'm going to make my promise again, the promise that I make every time we start. I'll try not to go over. So far, I've not been able to keep that promise. Maybe once I was able to keep that promise, we actually ended on time. But I'm going to try to end on time. So the meditation that we're going to do is a meditation we've done before. I think maybe the very first time we did this, I think it was very powerful for a lot of people because of the newness of it. But after a while, and then when it was reintroduced, it felt sort of, well, I guess it wasn't so new anymore. It wasn't as powerful. So we're gonna go back to it, and this time trying to recapture that sense of okay. Emmett, mute all or something.
Sure, I'll handle the mutes.
Okay. So we're going to do this meditation where you basically, it's going to be it's the hardest meditation that you can ever think of doing, because it is the simplest meditation of all meditations. Basically what you're going to be doing is try to make yourself not do anything. Okay. Do nothing at all. This is just a meditation that we're going to do so that we can, as a way of introducing the topic that we're going to talk about. Okay. And the way you're going to do nothing is this way. This is how you do nothing. Okay. You're gonna let your mind do whatever it wants to do. You're not going to stop it. As a matter of fact, when your mind seems to be engaging in something, you just want to constantly be in the back, behind the mind. As the mind is acting, you're behind watching the mind acting. And there's going to be another aspect of observing, which is behind the observer. So and what we are referring to as observer, think of it in this way as the field of awareness into which or within which the things that are happening in the mind are happening. So think of it as almost like as if you're in a space where the objects that are there, it's not easy for you to perceive, but you're waiting for some sort of indication that there are things there. Okay, I have to explain that, what I just said. So as you're observing the things that are happening in the mind, you don't push them away, but rather you understand that because they are present, they are causing awareness. And instead of looking at the thing that you are aware of, but rather look at the awareness itself. Okay. And it is this awareness, it is within this awareness, there is this potential for spontaneity. And we're going to talk about spontaneity in what context, and what is the meaning of spontaneity within the context of seeking awakening. Okay. And we have to be able to understand this in such a way that there are certain things that we may confuse for spontaneity, which are not spontaneity, and there are things which are part of spontaneity that we may not recognize. So being able to train ourselves to be able to recognize the spontaneity that is connected to awakening or leads to awakening. That's what we're going to talk about. So this awareness, have a deep curiosity about its nature. Okay, it's like you are very curious about the fact that you are aware. Even to the point when you are able to not notice anything in the mind. That is an awareness of something. So don't look at the blankness or the nothing that is appearing, but rather look at the awareness that is aware of the blank and the nothingness. Okay. All right, so get ready. So communicate to your entire being that you are going to meditate. Let the natural intelligence in the body, let them respond in the cooperative way. And begin by trusting the ground to hold and support your body. And deliberately, consciously hand over your body to the ground to hold and support for you. And just let it go. Trusting the ground will hold you, will support you. And in this very letting go, begin to notice signs arising already. Calm, a pleasantness. Some people, maybe already the inner sensations are arising. Just observe them without the intention to hold on to them, nor the intention to push anything away. And as you make contact with that pleasantness, with that calm in the body, rejoice. And be ready to take a dive into the space that is in front of you, that is waiting for you, that is inviting you, the space of meditation. With the determination and intention to fully commit yourself to it, to fully enter into that space. Take a nice deep breath in through the nose. And just completely release, letting go through the mouth, let go. And as you let go through the mouth, let go in the body, let go in the mind, let go in the breath, let go, feel the momentum of letting go, stay in that momentum of letting go, leave the breath alone. Leave the breath alone and just stay in that momentum of letting go, stay in that momentum of letting go, stay in that momentum of letting go. And already begin to try to anchor awareness, try to anchor attention on awareness itself. And whatever happens, whatever arises in the mind, whether it's a pleasant thing or unpleasant thing, immediately try to step away from it so you can see the field of awareness that is allowing for this appearance to take place. And keep relaxing body so the breath can be relaxed. Let the breath be relaxed so that the mind can be relaxed. And as the mind relaxes, then this field, this field of awareness within which appearances and sensations and experiences are taking place, it becomes more and more apparent. Like when things are stop moving around, you can be aware of the ground that is the space that is holding the things that are moving around within it. So begin already with that attitude towards the space of just awareness. Not grasping at things that are appearing, not pushing things that are appearing, but actually in a sense being grateful to the appearance of things because you are aware of them. They are making awareness take place. Almost have the attitude of wonder. And to help us stabilize, to help us go deeper into that, gently scan the body, but the purpose of scanning the body is to connect deeper to that sense that is arising, that space of calm, that space of pleasantness, and to rejoice as we notice any measure of them. The legs, the upright and comfortable torso, the shoulders, your arms and hands, making contact and rejoicing and noticing awareness. The head and neck, the mouth, teeth, tongue, head centered, mouth, teeth, tongue resting in their natural places. Muscles of the face, feel the relaxed state of the muscles of the face and forehead. Rejoice as you notice the soft resting of the eyes. And already you're beginning to sense, have a sense of pure awareness, of a sense of just being aware, attending to just awareness itself. And you're curious about this. You're very curious about awareness. You're curious about it, and you are bedazzled by the very fact of awareness. And even if your mind is creating ideas, awareness is this, awareness is not that, don't pay attention to them. Let them come, let them go as they come, as they go. But just pay attention to awareness. Let awareness itself tell you what it is. And as soon, then there are no distractions here. Whatever comes up in the field of awareness, it's pushing, it is disturbing awareness. It's making awareness active. So be grateful to anything that comes up, but immediately let it go and just look at the awareness itself that is aware of it. Now, with that degree that you have achieved, let's stabilize and deepen further with 3 full breaths in through the nose and out the mouth. And completely release, let go, and observing pure awareness as you do so. In through the nose and out the mouth. And as you release the breath, also think of releasing all ideas, all presumptions, all concepts. Just release them and notice what comes up. What becomes present when concepts and presumptions are absent? When you have just pure awareness in its naked face. A second full breath in through the nose. Remember that attitude with the out breath in and let go. Try to stay where you've reached. Try to stay there as you take the next and last full breath in through the nose and out. As soon as something arises in your mind that gives you the sense of being aware, immediately try to look at the awareness that is holding it. And if you notice you were not able to catch it on time, it was too fast, then remind yourself to relax. You need to relax. And notice whenever you're able to catch a glimpse of that space and how it leaves you with an impression that is very, very similar or very synonymous to the meditative state itself that you are tasting, that you are now enjoying. That it seems to be one and the same entity with the meditative state. The calm, the pleasantness, the vividness of experiences, the clear space, the distinctiveness of the experiences. Okay, something began, something is about to pull you in. Every once in a while, you might feel a sense of resistance, or you may be grasping at it too hard and it disappears. And just relax. You weren't doing anything to make it happen, so you don't need to do anything for it to continue. Sometimes it feels physical, sometimes it feels emotional, sometimes it feels mental. Sometimes it feels like something that goes through the line of all these expressions. You keep that sense of curiosity about that space, about that phenomena, which is awareness itself. And turn your mind, turn your heart towards that within us. It's guiding us, pulling us, pushing us, reminding us that we are not yet home. And towards the sense of being guided and protected by it, have a deep sense of respect, trust, and gratitude. And get ready to come out of the meditation. keeping that curiosity about the nature of this awareness. Ready to come out? Take a nice deep breath in through the nose and out the mouth. And gently reconnect with your immediate surroundings, reconnect with your sense of touch, sense of hearing, and sense of sight. Okay, I probably lost a lot of you because this probably was the most boring meditation you ever had. Okay. When I started to mention perhaps you may have felt that you were being pulled, either energetically or emotionally, and probably the immediate reaction could have been like, whoa, what's this? Should I trust you? I don't think I should trust you. Or even an unconscious hesitation without even knowing, why am I hesitating? But for some reason we are hesitating. Okay. So that's, you can call it a good sign. Okay. Whatever the reaction that you have towards it, it's okay. As you make progress, you can trust that pull, or you can allow it to take place, allow yourself to be taken deeper and deeper into it. All right. In some form or another, we've decided to consciously answer the call of our deeper selves, just for the sake of giving a name, a deeper selves. Some force deep within that speaks with authority and doesn't seem to stop speaking, doesn't seem to stop urging us. A voice telling us there is something not quite what it's supposed to be around you, in you, where you are. And at the same time, the voice seems to be promising something that once you encounter it, it will be very familiar. It will feel more like how things are supposed to be. But it doesn't tell us exactly what that is. But it urges us every once in a while, and we struggle with it. And as we struggle with it, sometimes we listen to it, and it seems the advice that it gives us when we follow it, it seems to be leading us to something meaningful. It seems to be giving us the taste of what it is promising us. But we never fully get to fully taste what it's promising us. But it's always like a taste that we cannot deny, a taste that once we have it, we, even after some time of going back to normal, we can't forget that taste of something that seems to be more meaningful than most of the things that we experience. And it's because of that we have an inner sense of conviction that where it is taking us is a place that we can continue to go towards. And we try to make sense out of it, and we try to be reasonable, we try to be practical, we try to even self-analyze ourselves to see, okay, this thing that I'm striving after, this sense that things are not what they're supposed to be, is this because I'm just not accepting things because I should be accepting things? Is it that there's something wrong with me for not accepting things as they are? Why is it that I'm not accepting things as they are? Why do I feel that there's something not quite right here? Why do I keep having that feeling? And in trying to answer that, in trying to really get to the bottom of this, you could say, then we take only the advice of this voice or this guidance within us. We go to others that we feel perhaps they're further along the way. We read books, we go to lectures, we go at the feet of this and that teacher, so that maybe they will say something that will resonate with us, and that we will finally recognize, okay, there it is, I'm not crazy, or I can continue. The destiny is actually an actual place. It's not some imagined place that I'm just playing escapism here. Okay. And of course, when we go to someone else, even when we ourselves, when the advice is coming from deep within, or when the advice is coming from someone else, but at some moment, at some time, we make a decision to follow. We make a decision to follow. I will do this, I will not do that. I will do this, I will not do that. And in trying to follow, I will do this, I will not do that, where there is some plan that we have created, or some plan that we have been given that from somebody that we trust, or from source that we trust. And after some time, we might become complacent. Become complacent in the sense that we forget why we are doing those things that we are doing, why we are avoiding the things that we are avoiding. It is because at the deep level, we are searching for something with deeper meaning. And why are we looking for something with deeper meaning? We are driven to do so. We don't even know why, but we are driven to seek meaning. We're driven to experience something that we can say meaning. This is meaning, okay? And, but unfortunately, stopping doing this, avoiding that, doing that, we don't immediately begin to experience, it's not like a gradual, wonderful journey where we are seeing a brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter. As we are on the journey, sometimes we encounter very dark days, sometimes we encounter very dark alleys. Sometimes we encounter not dark alleys, not just in the sense of what the world is giving us, but also in our own mind, in our own being. We encounter parts of us that well, this is me. Oh my goodness, when did that get here? Okay, and we are surprised by these kinds of things, and we begin to doubt. Wait a minute, did I stay away, or is this thing working? Is this thing not working? Or should I go to someone else to get some new list of things to avoid, new list of things to do? Maybe this list is not the right list, okay? Or we may, and that is when you're lucky. You encounter these kinds of things that shakes you, that makes you question, hey, remember why you're doing this, okay? Remember why you're doing this. Remember why you're doing this. Because you might become so complacent that in forgetting why we are doing it, that we just add to it. We just add to the very problem, the very situation that we were trying to get out of. So in a sense, we normalize we normalize the situation that we are in, but we normalize it in a way thinking that we are somehow above it. But when we are steeped within it, we are still within it. Okay? This is part of the journey. And we encounter, there's something deep within, in the sense of that part within us that is pointing. It is pointing to a state of being where spontaneity, and this is where spontaneity comes in now, it seems to be pointing to a state of being where spontaneity is part of the nature of that being. Okay? But this spontaneity that we are sensing that is part of the nature of that being, it's almost as if it's a sign for us when we will sort of start to know, to acknowledge, oh yes, it's a good thing I avoided that. It's a good thing I picked that up. But the very act of picking this up and not that, doing this, even though if it's difficult, but you force yourself to do it. Avoid that, even though it's difficult to avoid it, yet you avoid it, and you struggle in both ways, in struggle to not do, struggle to do. And it seems to be against the very thing that we are sensing. Wait a minute, isn't this state of being supposed to be spontaneous? How is it that I'm finding myself less and less spontaneous? Remember, you're on a path to spontaneity. You're not there yet. And the strange thing is about the spontaneity, it is not that it is not something that is, that we are going to create. We're not going to create a spontaneous self, a spontaneous way of being. We are going to merge into this spontaneity, the spontaneity nature, so to speak. This nature of spontaneity, we are going to merge into it. And on the way there, because there is the sense of spontaneity, there's a sense of, or there's this knowing that I'm not quite there yet, we might trick ourselves to act and to do things spontaneously, thinking that we are, in essence, because we are connected to our this nature within us that is spontaneous. Okay. Now, the spontaneity that is part of this nature is this kind of spontaneity. When we finally arrive at the place where things make sense, and in whatever way in whatever meaning you can ascribe to that, that is meaningful to you, that things making sense doesn't necessarily mean that now you know the square root of this and the square root of that. Now you know how many atoms are in I don't know, in your TV, how many atoms makes a cell phone. It's not that kind of, this is not the kind of things making sense I'm referring to, but it's more of a psychological state of being where things make sense, even if it is a sense of acknowledging, I don't know what that means, and that makes sense, and you're able to abide in that. It doesn't bother you that you don't understand that you don't know what that is, whatever that may be. Okay, you encounter a that. Okay, that is not what it means by things making sense, but rather to abide in a psychological state where you're not bothered. Okay, you're not bothered by mystery. Okay, but you're able to continue. There's no dysfunction within you because of encountering mystery. Okay, from that all the way to even if it means knowing how many atoms are in your cell phones. Okay, if that's what puts you psychologically at ease, okay, you will experience that. Okay, that you will experience that, whatever it means for you. Okay, so in that state where there is a sense of everything making sense, and because you are now abiding within it, because you're now, there isn't any sense of fooling yourself anymore. The spontaneity that occurred before was fooling yourself kind of spontaneity. Okay, that is the spontaneity where the very action that you take, the very action that you avoid, is only enchaining you deeper into this very uncomfortable way of existing. Okay, this kind of spontaneity is not the spontaneity of your being, of your fundamental nature, you could say, or your awakened nature. The spontaneity of the awakened nature is abiding, no longer fooling yourself, knowing in some clear way who you are, what you are. The only thing that can come out of you, whatever comes out of you, will be spontaneous. That means your reactions that you will have will be in line with truth. And it's not something that you have to pin yourself down to be able to experience. okay? Because you're now abiding in truth, in the truth of the true nature of your being, simultaneous with that, because of the mystery of it all, the wisdom, the knowing of your true nature. Simultaneously with that, there will be spontaneous compassion. There will be spontaneous love. Love is not something that you will bring in. Oh, this is a nice thing. Since I'm in truth now, it will be cute to decorate my truth with some nice compassion, with some nice love. The love and the compassion will be simultaneous with that. There are aspects of each other even. And because you're now abiding in truth, because you're now abiding in truth, and your only means to act, your only means to react to things will be from that place of truth. And that reaction to things, that reaction will be a compassionate reaction. That will be a loving reaction. And this is called spontaneity. And the spontaneity that they're referring to is this: since your true nature is freedom, since your true nature has within it this compound of compassion and love and wisdom, since that is the true nature, okay, when you allow yourself to act from that place, and from that place alone, that action is called being spontaneous. Okay? Spontaneous means acting from your true nature. And if you allow that, if you allow yourself to be aware of that aspect of the wisdom and the compassionate aspect, then that is spontaneity. And this is something that we sense. I mean, when we think about, I want to be spontaneous, in our minds, there is a sense of, I want to be myself, right? I want to be myself. I want to be true to who I am. I'm going to act from that place of who I am, of what I am. But if you don't know who you are, if you're stuck to an illusion of what you're supposed to be, your idea of spontaneity is just perpetuating a lie. You're not being spontaneous. But when you're connected to your true nature, whatever you do is spontaneous. That's what spontaneity is about. Okay? And of course, on the way there, as we are trying very hard to stay on the path, we are avoiding this, avoiding that, taking on this, taking on that, and these are they're not spontaneous. What are they not spontaneous? It's a lie of them not being spontaneous, in a sense that because we have adopted this false narrative, this false history, we have adopted this false identity, and we're ascribing spontaneity to this false self. Of course, when we are trying to, when we make that touch, when we make that connection to that true self, and we are acting from that place, it seems alien to us, but it seems alien only to the false self. It seems it's uncomfortable only for the false self. And why is it uncomfortable? Why is it alien? Because that self, which is false, that we are identified, that's false identity, by continuing to act, by continuing to allow ourselves to act out of compassion, act out of wisdom, this false self will naturally just go out of existence. And because we identify with it, and because somewhere deep within us, we intrinsically, I'm going to throw the word intrinsic in there, because we intrinsically feel that this false self will cease to be, and that's what we are identifying with, then we have a sense that I will come to cease to be. So we grasp onto it. We don't want to let it go. And we continue to make ourselves experience the spontaneity that comes from our true self. And true self isn't like some little, you have a little true self somewhere within you waiting. When are you gonna get to it? Okay, I'm the true self. When is this false self gonna get out of here? I'm so tired. No, there's no little real self within you complaining. When is this gonna end? When is it gonna be my turn to play? Okay, there's no little thing like that waiting. Okay, that's not what we mean by the sense of. That's not about the true self. It's not like a personality kind of thing. But just for the sake of communicating it, true self is just a nice way of putting it. Okay, just remind yourself, true self is when we know the true nature of our being and we abide in it. Okay, the kind of self that we experience at that level, that's the true self. Okay, don't think of it as some whatever, okay, little self waiting, no, come on, hurry up, kind of thing. All right. So now we understand what I mean by true self. Okay. So when we somehow touch that true self, either by accident or by sheer will, and then when we taste it, and then we find ourselves acting from that place, at the moment that we are acting from that place, we have a taste of bliss that is very fleeting. We have a taste of clarity. We have a taste of that sense of, everything makes sense now. But because of habit, and that's something that we have to go back to the word habit. Because of habit of identifying, okay? Identifying is a very, very fluid thing. It's powerful and it's very fluid. We can take identity and put it on anything and we become identified with it. Okay? So that's the power of identity. There's nothing wrong with identity. There's nothing wrong with that process. I mean, the process is, it's just the nature of things. But it's where we place it. Because we place it on a false sense of self. Now we are identified with this false sense of self. And just only in reference, just only in as a way of relating, or the way of understanding, that we say in reference only to this self that we identify with, that we say there's a real self or the true self. Okay. Now, let me go back again. When there is that taste of what you might call the true self, a taste of, because your true nature is not something that comes and goes. It's something that's always there. And once in a while, without even attempting to, we have a taste of it, okay? And in that moment, let me remind you, in that moment when we are spontaneously acting from that place, from that self, there is bliss, there is clarity, there is, things make sense. But because this is not where we are habituated to putting identity, the habit of where we place identity goes back to the opposite of that, to the false sense of self. And it's when we get back to the false sense of self where that experience somehow becomes uncomfortable and alien. But it's uncomfortable and alien to this false self. That's why it feels uncomfortable. That's why it feels alien. Okay. So when you feel that, you can congratulate yourself. That means, I must have tasted the other one. That's why now this doesn't taste so good. Okay. It's like, trying to think of a food example. Unfortunately, I'm not a good foodie. It's like go into a place and you eat, yes. Is that going to be an insult? Well, I don't mean it as an insult. It's like having cappuccino. Okay. There are some places you go and you ask for a cappuccino. As soon as they say, do you want that small or large? Get out of there. They have no idea what they're doing. Okay. Cappuccino comes only in one size. Okay. So if you're desperate for cappuccino and you're walking around in a place that you don't know, and then you go to this place, you ask for cappuccino, and they ask you what size. They say, okay, make it a small. And they do whatever they do and they give it to you. As soon as you taste it, and you toss it or throw it away, okay? And finally, you arrive at a place where you ask for a cappuccino and they just make it for you, don't ask you for what size. Then you taste it and say, finally, a cappuccino, okay? I'm sorry, I sort of lost myself in the, in the metaphor. Why did I bring up the metaphor for? It's oh yes, it's the taste of when you go back into the taste of what you're familiar with, then the other thing that you were tasting tastes like that's not what it's supposed to be. Okay, but there's when we are continuously continuing the habit of identifying with this false narrative of who I am. And sorry if I'm making it too abstract, okay? But you know what I'm talking about, right? And it's as goes as far as like in the letter, the invitation email, I am a Buddhist, okay? And we identify with that. But we already have our construct, false construct of what a Buddhist is supposed to be, and we're trying to fit that mold of being a Buddhist. And we're forgetting that we are a fluid being. That is our true nature. And being a Buddhist is just a means of fulfilling something. It's a means of fulfilling something. And up to this point, it seems to be working. It seems to be working well. Okay, but don't identify with it as though the rituals that you're doing, the different things that you're taking up, the things that you're putting away. Don't think of them as being that's it. That's the goal itself. Okay, but rather it is a means. It is a means. Sooner or later, we have to let go of them. There's a beautiful sutra where the Buddha is talking about the essence of vows, the essence of taking commitments, where, and he's talking about always remember why you took the vow. It is the why you took the vow and keeping to the why that is keeping the vow. It's not keeping to the letter of the vow, okay? And that's why in the higher teachings, there seems to be obvious breaking of what you were told not to break before. It's to shake the mind out of the habit of grasping to things, shaking the mind out of the habit of identifying with fleeting things. And not really identifying with the fleeting things that saying, oh, that's a fleeting thing, I'm gonna identify with it, and then being okay that it is fleeting, but rather identifying with something that is by nature fleeting. And when we identify, we say the moment that that tiny moment of it that we were able to catch, we say that's what it is. And that's what we're identifying with, okay? So at some time, at some moment, we identify with, I'm spiritual. And then there was a fixed idea of what that's supposed to mean. And then that brief moment that we identify with it, if we don't allow it, if we don't allow spiritual, which is fluid, if we don't allow ourselves to stay with that, with the fluidity, fluidity of its nature, then just that moment that we were able to catch, and we are still holding on to it. And no wonder that we experience pain, because as soon as we grabbed it, it was gone. And in a sense, we are living in a moment that's no longer there, and we're expecting it to appear to us. We're expecting it to make itself appear to us, but it was never its nature to stay. So it was moving, but we didn't move with it, but we just got caught with that fleeting moment, and we are grasping onto that fleeting moment. Even though it's not there, we are holding onto it. Okay. And that's what happens when we grasp onto certain identities, when we grasp onto certain ways of being. And when we identify with a false notion of self, and remembering spontaneity, and that sort of gets mixed, and we falsely identify with this false sense of identity. And when it is perpetuating itself as a lie, when it is perpetuating itself as a falsehood, what does that mean? It is perpetuating your pain. It is perpetuating your suffering. That's what it's doing. That's what it's perpetuating. It's not just an idea that lives in your mind. It is your life being in pain, your life in suffering. And in whatever ways that you want to talk about pain, talk about whatever it is that you're experiencing, that when you're experiencing it at the depth of your being or wherever, there's a wish that I wasn't experiencing this. Okay. So that is suffering. Whether somebody was feeding you honey and then you can't stand honey, and that's your suffering. Okay. It's not that honey is suffering, but that experience itself. Okay. Not wanting to experience something at the moment when you're experiencing it. Okay? So take that. So in whatever grades, in whatever levels of qualities that you're experiencing suffering, that's what we are perpetuating when we constantly identify with this fleeting self, this fleeting identity. Okay, trying to make it something that it is not, trying to make it something that it cannot be. Okay, so when the force of habits, there it is, I said habits is coming, here it is. When the force of habit to continue this false identity comes up, it might feel like spontaneity. It might feel like the spontaneity of our true nature. Okay. And we want to respond to that. We want to be spontaneous. Spontaneous means being, acting out of your true nature. And that's where we have to apply discrimination. Okay. Is what is going on at the moment? What are you identifying with at the moment that this spontaneity is arising out of? That's what we have to apply discrimination. Okay. And when we hear such incredible stories like Nagarjuna, for example, slapped Aryadeva with his slippers. That was spontaneous. And we would like to do that. We would like to be able to do that kind of stuff. Right? But out of what was Nagarjuna acting out of? Was he acting out of the kinds of dysfunction that we identify with? And then he slapped Aryadeva? Or through his wisdom, by connecting to his wisdom, by connecting to his compassion, which is his true nature, that was the appropriate action to take. Because when Adyadev was slapped with a pair of, with the slippers of Nagarjuna, Adyadev said, ah, now I get it. Okay. Thank you very much. Hey, don't come slapping me with your slippers, okay? Unless you're abiding in your true nature of wisdom and compassion. Okay. So it's not so much the act that is done that is spontaneous. Sometimes when we think about being spontaneous, we think about jumping up and down. Okay. And sometimes jumping up and down is a very silly thing to do. And sometimes jumping up and down is a very wise thing to do, very compassionate thing to do. Okay, so it's not so much the act, but out of what is the act coming out of. Okay, so we're on the path. Summing things up. We're on the path. We have habits. And unfortunately, since an act like slapping someone with your slippers could be both ignorance or it could be wisdom, we are confused. Of course we are confused. We are confused. And admit that you are confused. All right? That's the first thing. And understand that within us, there's this habit energy to perpetuate the very situation that we want to escape from, we want to get out of. There's a habit energy perpetuating it. And it's like the true meaning of meme. The true meaning of meme, okay? The true meaning of meme. Do I have to give you a teaching on the true meaning of meme? Think of gene. No, the gene that's not the gene you wear, okay? The gene that goes from generation to generation, not Levi's, okay? That's in the biological gene, okay? That goes from parents to children, and then so on and so forth, right? The purpose of the gene is to simply replicate itself. The purpose of it is it has information that it has gathered, and it wants the continuity of that information. Okay. So it creates conditions that will allow for the continuity of the information. All right. So that's the gene. Now think of meme as the same, but instead of being biological, it's psychological. Okay. Like, the purpose of it is to simply transmit its information to the next, okay? So think of the habit energy that keeps this kind of existence going as a meme. Its purpose is to perpetuate itself. Not in an evil, I'm gonna perpetuate myself, yeah. Not in that kind of sense. It's just blindly perpetuate itself. It's habit energy, okay? It got cranked up and then it's just perpetuating itself, okay? So because of that, just like the gene in biology will create certain conditions. Like, for example, think of this ingenious idea. There is this, what's it? I think it's a bacteria that wants to live in the stomach of a cat, right? So it infects a mouse, makes the mouse lose all sense of how would you call that? All fear whatsoever, right? And makes the mouse not afraid of a cat. And the mouse goes in front of a cat, not afraid of the cat. Of course, the cat eats the mouse. And what happens? Now the bacteria gets to go where it wants to be, in the stomach of the cat. Okay, so so in the same way that, and don't think of some evil genius, you know, you know, it's just, you know, the nature of things. Okay, think of it now as this habit energy wants to perpetuate itself. Okay, not to avoid you from meeting your true self. It doesn't have that intention or purpose. It simply wants to perpetuate itself. That's the nature of its existence. Okay, so it will create perceptions. It will create experiences. It will create perception of experiences that will create that will have a reaction, so that you react in such a way that you perpetuate yourself. You perpetuate this false identity. Okay? So because of that, it seems like we are caught. We don't know when to be spontaneous, when to not be spontaneous, when to follow rules, when to not follow rules. So we are caught. So the thing to do is, once you decide, okay, I will follow this, follow it. Follow it until you reach a point where you feel like, okay, I have followed this as much as it can be followed, where it actually takes you somewhere. Okay, and as you are following it, you're following it with, not with the intention, not with the not, I would say, not honoring it. You honor it, but at the same time, you know that there will come a time when you have to let it go. But because you understand there's a time that you will have to let it go, doesn't mean that while it's with you, you're disrespecting it. You don't have any respect for it. You respect it in the most highest way that you can respect anything. Okay? But at the same time, you understand that it's there to take you somewhere. Okay? Imagine you're in a car with someone, and they're taking you to your destination, and you're making it difficult for that person to drive you there, right? They're gonna kick you out of the car. They won't be able to take you there anymore. Okay, even though once you get to your destiny, the car doesn't stay with you, right? The car's mission is fulfilled, and it goes. But you have to be thankful to the car for taking you to where you wanted to go. Okay. So as you're following the rules of adopting this, getting rid of that, respect it. But at the same time, understand that it is not itself the goal. It is a means to fulfill the goal. Okay? And every once in a while, there are certain identities that you have to adopt. And sometimes you may even, just for the sake of being able to exercise letting go of the habit of grasping onto identities, deliberately create an identity and live it. Now, test it out, you know? Like just like you change your clothes, sometimes change identities also, to exercise to remind yourself that identities are fluid. They're not stuck. You're not stuck with them. Okay. It's just as an exercise. Okay. So respect what you're following, deeply respect it without being attached to it. So that when the wisdom and the compassion within you, when you make that contact, and you want it to be spontaneous, you want it to be expressed, and it may ask you to do something that appears to be against the rules. And you have to be ready for discrimination to be clear enough to know, oh, yes, now it's time to, this is not breaking the rules. This is really being spontaneous. And I have to say thank you to Geshe Michael Roach, because I was such a, when I was following my vows, I was so strict that and he told me, hey, you got to loosen up. I said, what? I have to loosen up? Loosen up is not, it's not, which rule is it? Which rule is it? I don't see in the list that says loosen up. And I think and I spent, I don't know how many years not watching any, not reading any novels, not watching any movie or anything like that, just, you know, study, meditate, and whatever else is supposed to be doing in the rules. And after many years, Geshe Michael told me, you need to listen up, go watch a movie. Go watch a movie, but isn't that against the rule? So out of his connection with wisdom and compassion, he was giving me a spontaneous advice. Okay. Yes, I listened to him. And I've been addicted to movies ever since. Okay, not addicted, okay. But I watch, I appreciate movies now. I guess in a way it was preparing me to live with Leon. Leon was he go to the movies every single day. Goes to work, goes to the movies, and go home. It doesn't matter what's playing. He just sits in the theater and then watch it. And he could tell me, oh, that's the producer. Oh, the so-and-so produced this, so-and-so directed it, so-and-so starred in it, so-and-so was the lead, so-and-so was the, he was that kind of a movie person. And I guess Michael, Geshe Michael was preparing me to be able to live with Leon. Okay, without looking at, oh, Leon, he watches movies. Look, how is he on the path? Okay, right, you have to be fluid. That's your nature. Your nature is spontaneity itself. But it's not just the spontaneity that perpetuates this false identity, okay? Rather, seek to be spontaneous from your true nature and be open to it so that when the energy of spontaneity comes from that place, you're ready. So you're ready to act. And because this is coming out of, it's simultaneously connected to compassion, it may not be for you. The spontaneous thing that you do may not be for you. It may be for someone else. And that person who is it for doesn't have to be in the room with you, okay? You could spontaneously feel like dancing in your home and you dance. And yet, without knowing it, you're helping someone who lives on the other side of the world, right? Because of connection, right? All right. I hope I touched it. Okay. All right. So shall we open for questions?
Sure. How many, we have time for 1 or 2 questions, yeah? So if you do have a question, if something came up, feel free to unmute yourself and you can ask Phuntsok what's happening.
Phuntsok, what about when you get in the car and then it takes you to a place and then you're like, this isn't the place that I want to be? Is that a thing?
Oh yeah, that is definitely a thing.
When do you determine that?
When you are, I mean, could it be that the car took you to a place and the place that you end up is a place that you should not be, that you don't want to be? Right, that's the question?
Right.
Yeah. Okay, there are two answers for that, sorry. I'm not trying to be diplomatic, okay? I've been accused of that also. When you get into the car where you were guided, right? You were guided by everything that you know at that time was good guidance. And you get into the car. And when the car finally takes you to where the car takes you to, and you realize, wait a minute, this is not in line with what my intention was for getting into the car, then you have a very beautiful piece of knowledge. You have direct knowledge of something. That car doesn't take you there. And now you can help others who are getting into that car to get to the destination that you were getting to. He said, no, sorry, I tried that car. It doesn't take you there. That doesn't take you there. Now you can help others, okay? So in a sense, it wasn't completely useless. Okay, it's useful.
But how can you tell if it's I think that I'm thinking more about like the difference between being in the car and fighting being in the car.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like the difference between like feeling opposed to the commitments you've made
Mm-hmm.
versus like knowing like, oh, like, you know, like staying in the car because you just like, I'm gonna see where this is gonna go, even though it's like it feels like against what my habits are, which seem like the nature that I should be, versus like versus the feeling of like, this car is going where I don't want to go.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
How can you distinguish between those two feelings?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, with the first example of the answer, so you arrive at where you arrive at in terms of knowledge of, I know this car doesn't take you there. I know this commitment doesn't take me there. Okay. That's useful for you. But there's also where when you, with all that within you, that you sincerely trusted was coming from, as far as you can tell, coming from your wisdom, and that's where it takes you to, then you may not like it where it takes you to, but it doesn't mean that that's not where you shouldn't be. Sometimes wisdom will take us to places that are very uncomfortable, because that's what we need to grow at those times. Okay. But the thing to remember is, once the car takes you there, the car has fulfilled its purpose. You don't need to stay in the car anymore. Okay. And you may have arrived at a place that is uncomfortable. Now there's something else that you need to do. Now there's something else that you need to deal with. Now you are facing it. And one more in terms of, in connection to that is, and this is very practical, okay? You're following a particular commitment, and you're sincerely following the commitment. You're honestly following the commitment the way you're supposed to, the way you know you're supposed to. You're not you're not, half-assing it. Is that a verb? No, it's a verb. Okay. You're not half-assing it, right? You're really sincerely following it. Okay. Now, if you should definitely continue, there will be that little voice within you that tells you to continue. And the voice could be very faint. It could be, but it will be very clear. It will not be loud, but it will be very clear that you should continue. And it may last It will be like, 2 seconds or 1 second, a moment. Okay? Then you continue. But if you are sincerely following it, and instead of it's not that it brings you to an uncomfortable place. Not this discomfort is not necessarily a sign that you're it's taking you in the wrong direction. Okay. It could be just be the ego feeling itself being about to be erased. That gives that sense of discomfort. It could be that also. That's what that little voices are showing you. Okay, keep going. Okay. But if it's taking you to nowhere, okay, and I'm going to throw in something that I read in the Bible, which when I first read it, I said, oh my goodness, how could they say such a thing? It says something, I'm not quoting, direct quotes, but so at some time towards the end, those who are hot and those who are cold will be praised or something, but those who are like mediocre, those who don't do anything, they will be spit out, something like that. Okay, so if the experience is what to look out for is this experience, is it taking me through an experience where there is some kind of transformation taking place, where I am being emboldened to face my demons, and that could be uncomfortable, or it could also be very blissful. That's the hot and cold. It could be very blissful. But if it's neither, if you're going nowhere, then it's time maybe to get out the car. Maybe it's not moving. It's not moving. You're just sitting in the car waiting for it to, as soon as you get, it's like, yeah, this happened to you when you're in New York City or in the subway. You get in the car very absorbed into reading something, and you're sitting down, you're reading, and like 20 minutes goes by, and you think like it was time for you to, you should be close to your stop, and you realize the train hasn't moved. You didn't go anywhere. For 20 minutes, you were just sitting in the car thinking that you were going somewhere, and then the train was not moving. And then finally, you finally heard what everybody's been hearing. Oh, this train is out of service. Get out the train. Okay. Oh, I miss those days. So when you're following commitment and sincerely after some time, you don't notice any kind of transformation or the process of transformation taking place, then it has done its job already, okay, for you, okay? But if you find yourself struggling, resisting, if you find some kind of reaction coming from you instinctively, just because it's uncomfortable doesn't necessarily mean that it's not what you're supposed to, okay? And unfortunately, that's what this habit, remember the habit, its purpose is to perpetuate itself. It will create all kinds of delusions to make us, unfortunately, many times we will fall for these tricks and delusions. But only by falling for them will we recognize them for what they are. Only by experiencing them. Yes, someone else has a question.
Hi, Phuntsok. Great topic tonight. Thank you. I was wondering if maybe you could just speak a little bit about spontaneity and heroism, because it seems to me that, wherever we hear these stories of people pulling someone out of the subway tracks, at the last minute, the story's always the same. I didn't think, I just acted, and everyone else would have done that. But it also seems like that's not the case, because there's always people around, and just the one person does it. So is that a moment when that individual is experiencing a sense of enlightenment, or they're connected with their true self, and they're just acting in this moment of compassion, in that spontaneous moment? Because heroism is so timed to the exact moment.
Yeah. All I have to say is, yeah, definitely. At this moment when people find themselves acting that way, then they made it. First, there was a sense of connection with the person, and recognizing that sense of connection. The delusion of separation is completely gone, and there was no need to, I need to do this, and I'll do that, and I'll do this. Now there was no need for that, because the person was dwelling in wisdom at the moment, and only what was needed to be done, that person was connected to, and then allowed that to flow through them, and they were able to then spontaneously act that way. Yeah, thanks for that example. Yes, Nizam.
Oh, well, I was going to talk about the car, because I feel like I should share, because that thing happened to me a couple of weeks ago, where I got into my car and I drove for 2 days in the wrong direction, and got to the place I thought I wanted to go, and realized it was kind of the meme of a habit that brought me there. And it was like semi-traumatic and really challenging. But just seeing that habit and getting to there, I realized that was actually the true path, was that I needed to see this thing so that in the future, it wouldn't keep perpetuating itself. So like that sense of being in the wrong place became the path itself. And it was like, afterwards, it was like, wow, like if all I had to do was drive 2 days in the wrong direction to see that, that was totally worth it.
Yeah. When Arya Dev was slapped with a pair of slippers, at that moment, when the pair of slippers made contact with his face, do you think that was pleasant? No. Okay. Suffering is only in the realm of, I have to say, false ego. Okay. Only in the realm of false ego is there experience of suffering. Okay. So if you have any taste of it, that's a sign, maybe you're not in your true self. Okay. And that's what you feel driven to get away from it, because you want to reestablish in your true self. Okay. All right. I think we are going to end. All right. Okay. And today is a surprise. The surprise is we are ending on time. Surprise. Okay. We're going to do the meditation that we did before, with this understanding of this this nature that is within us. And don't think of within us as in, like in us, kind of in, but rather think of it as we are an expression of it. The way we are right now is an expression of it. That's how, in that sense, it is within us. We are an expression of it. Okay. And it is in a sense of even in those moments, those traumatic moment when we are not experiencing ourselves, it is there. Okay? Just keep that in mind. So you don't reject anything, you don't grasp onto anything. Okay? And with every, it's gonna be like a breath meditation. Each time you breathe out, think of, I'm letting go. And what are you letting go of? Whatever it is that is in your mind. Even, oh, I don't see anything. Let go of that. Okay? And have a deep curiosity for the space that holds everything. Wanting to encounter the space that holds everything. Okay? Ready? All right. Have a beautiful communication with your body, making sure you're comfortable, that the body is conducive for meditation. And once you feel that beautiful sense of connection with the body, and get ready to dive into that space that holds everything. That doesn't reject, that doesn't grasp. So we will take the first dive with the first breath in through the nose and out the mouth. Let go, let go, let go. Stay in the momentum of letting go. Be curious, be joyfully curious about just the space. Anything that comes up in that space is giving you awareness of the space, of awareness itself. So don't reject anything, don't grasp onto anything. And each time you breathe out, through naturally, stay deep into the letting go. To encourage the continuous letting go. As soon as you reach the end of the exhalation, you know you let go. Try to stay where the out-breath took you. Rejoice, witnessing what is arising. The loudness of the inner sound, the vividness of the visions, the lights, the colors, the strength of the tactile sensations, the movements, the warmth, the clarity of the thoughts, the experiences that are arising. Take the weird feeling in the body as an indication of what's naturally supposed to happen as you let go, as you approach closer and closer. Take the weird visions, the colors appearing as a natural sign of what should be happening as you get closer and closer. The weird sounds, the strange thoughts. Don't hold them, don't push them, but understand there is something permeating all of them. And that's what you want to continue to approach ever closer, ever closer. And those strange experiences are signs that you are indeed approaching closer and closer. Understand that we've touched it. There's something happening in the world somewhere that draws compassion from you. Understanding the fluidity of identity, that is, a sound could be nonsense, and the same sound can be healing and meaningful. So stay connected to that compassion, compassionate concern. Stay connected to that compassionate concern. Stay connected to that measure of understanding. Identity is fluid. And wish for a spontaneous expression that will send healing waves towards whatever you're compassionately concerned about. So on the count of 3, allow that spontaneous expression. But still stay connected. The out breath, you let go. And you feel maybe the body's heavy. Stay with the heavy body as you breathe in. And with the next exhalation, you let go. Maybe the heavy body's heavier, or you're hearing a sound in your head. Now go to that. Whatever comes at the end of the exhalation, stay with it as you breathe in. Now that compassionate concern, wishing for some spontaneous thing you can do right now to address it. 1, 2, 3. That was not planned. Okay. Nice deep breath to come out. Reconnect with your immediate surroundings, sense of touch, sense of hearing, sense of sight. Kewa di, kewa kun, sonam yeshe, zok zok shing, sonam yeshe, lechumwe, damba kunyi, topar show. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Phuntsok.
Thank you.
That was awesome and also a little surprising and really fun. To everybody, I am posting a link to Phuntsok's Patreon page. These classes are recorded and posted there. So if you want to review this class, if there was a lot in there for you, that'll be up tomorrow morning. If you want to look back on old recordings, those are there too. And of course, if you're able to contribute, donate to keep these classes going, you can become a subscription member to Phuntsok's Patreon. So feel free to copy that link, and yeah, this will be up there tomorrow morning. So thank you so much, guys. And you can unmute and say thanks. I'll leave the meeting open for another couple of seconds.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Phuntsok.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
to see you, to hear you guys. Thank you.
Bye.